Hey, what's going on, y'all? Back with another one. Back with another one. Let's see what we got here. Let's see what we got here. Okay, let's talk about a little bit of the Moors, to my Black Britain and all this other stuff, right? Before it was white and all this conquest. Talked about this years ago. The Siberia have no idea the migration, last teenager and all that is showing. So Black Britain, as you can tell, it's a lot of arguments. So Black Britain. All right. All right. Let's see something real quick. Well, I got to talk about this. I got to talk about this. Black Britain, right? I got to talk about this. I have to talk about this, right? This is before it was called, United Kingdom, Ireland, and all that. Yeah, it's called that now currently, but I don't know if it was like that back then. It's probably have different names on it. But Black Britain, talking about the Moors and all that, right? Little interesting stuff. Little interesting stuff. I'm gonna put it on me for just a second, and I'm just gonna see what's on here because we're gonna talk about it. We're gonna talk about the things that Black History Europe is synopsis. We're gonna talk about that just a little bit, and then we'll talk about the Europeans and all that, settlers and man's migration to Africa, a little bit of stuff like that. And we talked about the Minoans and all that. That's the migration. Okay, that's what that's about. We're not gonna get into that. That's a little graphic. I can do that on a live stream, but it's too graphic. Yeah. I can't go all the way through. Black History synopsis. That's a separate topic or a private stream or whatever. But I'm not gonna post it. It's educational. It's just like I have to be clear. From the so-called guidelines. You know how pre-recording is. So we're gonna go down to here. Let's see something real quick. Um, all right. Found on the side. I'm learning this by mistake. Okay. Note that 374 years, Britain, France, and Holland brought 456 African slaves total, but yet they have all uh, abundant black artifacts in their national records, but with the customary stupid tales created to explain them. That's what they say. And there's some truth behind what this guy's saying. Shouts out to Real History, www.com. I talked about this before. I'm just going to skim through. He said, but there are the European white countries with populations that did not purchase one single African slave, but yet many artifacts of blacks and rich garments with any number of stupid tales created to explain them. There's Russia, 144,000. I mean, 144 million to 31,000. You have Germany, 81 million, 400. Okay. And then it got 78 million. And it goes down. We talked about this before in politic form, Georgia, the country of Georgia, and then Moldova, Albania, Estonia, Kosovo, Latvia. Yeah, Latvia. And it was 1,979,000. 1,979,000. Okay. That's in the Slavic countries. And then you have Macedonia, 2 million. Moldova, Armenia, Ireland, Slovakia, Norway, it's Northern Europe, Finland, Denmark. Serbia is in the Slavic country. Switzerland is 8,265,000. Yeah. Azerbaijan. Azerbaijan is 9,651,000. So Azerbaijan, or people be known as Aberjani, if y'all familiar. The slave voyages constellation at Emory University has been updated from 20 to 21, but the last version of the slave voyage was 2.0. Okay, and then we mentioned this before. We talked about this reason, the transatlantic slave estimates. That's what they would say, but that was in Emory University. So that was in Emory. Is it worth reading? True. And then there's the Grimaldi man and all that stuff. Shouts out to the old boy right here. So basically, he's giving me a blueprint picture of what's what. I got to see the rest, but I'm just going to skim through, teaching and things like that, the teaching eye, because I'm getting past the racial stuff. I'm trying to, they're debates. That's what they are. And then we read about the Lant Street teenager. I'm going to read this off and then probably show you. It's a most complete skeleton study was that 14-year-old girl whose museum creators have named the Lance Street teenager, but the analysis of her DNA and chemicals in her teeth showed that she grew up in North Africa. Her mitochondria DNA lineage passed down on the maternal line only. It's common in the southern and eastern Europe, but the teenage had blue eyes, and yet there were things about her skeleton suggest that she had sub-Saharan African ancestors. That's what she say. Sub-Saharan. That's what they would say. Sub-Saharan. Man, old man, the street man, gladiator. These all debates. I'm skimming through. I'm gonna go for the ancient. Because shouts out, he's got a lot of stuff. Then the breaker culture, Black Germany. The beaker culture, the blacks first Europeans. I talked about this before. The Grimaldi man. And we talked about Europe. I talked about it in pre-records. A lot of these are debates. Might have to skim through. I got to find the actual. They said the Celtic myth and legend, or Celtic myth or legend. This is a good page 19. Black builders and all that. Ancient Europe, soda. Yeah, I'm trying to skim through. Okay, here we go. 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 Okay, albino's been issued with quotes tactics only reference to black of Britain. All right, 10th, the geography inhabitants in Britain already described by many writers I speak of, not not that in my research and ability may be compared with theirs, but because the country was then for the first time thoroughly subdued, and so matters which has been still not known accurately known my predecessors embellished with their imagination, but shall be related of the evidence and facts. Major, they will say Celtic, but Celtic or major Celtic or Celtic culture, however you want to say it, is Bryonic tribes of the British and the mainland based on the Roman records. And 120 CD, it says AD right here, but I call it CE, includes the Belgic, I mean the Belgic tribes and the Belgae. Yeah, the Belgae, the Pearly, and the Kanzanic and Brits who migrated in Britain before the advance of the Romans. That's what they say right here in these territories before Rome conquested. This is pretty accurate. And then there's a country called Hibernia, and then all these names that before it was called England and all that. They had different names before that. So it's a history right here. Now, 11, quote, where the original inhabitants of Britain, whether they were indigenous of foreign, It is unusual among barbarians, little known, but the physical characteristics are various from other conclusions may be drawn. But the red hair and the large limbs of the inhabitants of the Caledonia point clearly to a German origin. They said German origin or Germanic tribes, right? This is what he's talking about in the green right here. Caledonia is in the green, right? Caledonia, yeah, Caledonia. Yeah, Caledonia is one. Germanic tribes and all that. The dark complexion of the sealers, yeah, sealers, yeah, the sealers. They're usually curly hair. In fact, that Spain and the opposite shore to them, and in the evidence that Iberians, they call them Iberians, of a former date crossover, the occupied these parts. But these were who were the nearest to the Gauls are also like them, either from them permanent and influence of the original descent or because in countries which run out and so far defeat each other. But the climate has produced similar to physical qualities. See? True Gauls. The Roman coin struck in 48 BCE to commemorate the defeat of the Versa Sexotrox. I've talked about him before. The last king unified the Celts and the Gauls of France. Normandy. This is the true Gauls right here. Normandy were the people who gave their name to Normandy, or region northern France, but they were descended from the Viking conquerors in the territory and the native populations. Their identity emerged initially the first half of the 10th century, but gradually evolved over succeeding the centuries. But the name Normans derives from the Normandy or Northerner after the Vikings who conquered the Normandy. They conquered those people, the Vikings. You know who they are. And these are the Iberians right here. These are the Iberian people right here, right? So the Iberian people would be, let's read this one right here. Bronze portrait of the bust of a lady of Am- Ampere, Iberia, known as Spain, the circa 100 CE. It was known as Iberia before they called it Spain. You know, the Italians call it Spanish. You know how that's the history of that. Bronze made statuette gold mask found in the Calidus, Asturias, Spain in 1928, dated the 8th century to 7th century BCE. That's before it was called Spain. It was called Iberia, land of Iberia. But the general survey inclines to me to believe that the Gauls established themselves in an island as near to their religious beliefs may be traced to the strongly marked British superstition, but the language differs but a little. But there is the same boldness in challenging danger, and whether it's near and the same Timothy in shrinking from it. But the Britons, however, exhibit more spirit as being the people of with the long peace has not yet inve- invigorated, but indeed was would endure understood that the Gauls were the ones removing the war. But after a while, Sloth following on ease crept over, they have lost their courage along with their freedom. But there's this too is this too I'll say this has happened to a long conquered tribes of Britain, but the rest are still what the Gauls are once were. They once were. So we go down here. We talking about Britain and Europe at this point, and this is Iberia Peninsula, or known as Iberia. See, Iberian Peninsula is right here, and then you talk about Iberia before they call it Spain. So straight Gibraltar to my Africa at this time, and and then you got the copper bust of the deity, possibly Minerva, and found in the west in the Cambridge, England, Roman period. So the head of the Roman Celtic god found 2013 during the archaeological and the minister of Roman fort built around CE, but 100 built around 100 CE 100 or AD 100 they will say or CE. Okay, the statue from the incomplete remains of a life-size statue of the temple of the Antitokitis or something like that. Antonakakitis which was an external mural temple outside the southern corner of the Roman fort of the Cantacrum and present to the Benwell outside of the new castle upon Tyne, UK, and United Kingdom, they would say, right? But the temple was destroyed by fire in 197 CE in an uprising of the Maderate and the tribe of the Brigantes and was never restored. So that's what was going on. England tribal, Old English, and that's just what it was. Um, the English tribal and English people quoted, okay, the ancient brown races or the races of North Europe, they can be no doubt their existence of the southeast of Norway, but in the north, I mean, in the east of Firesland. But there can be no doubt, but the important influence that which told the Winnish race has been in the northern eastern parts of Germany, transmitting to their descendants more than the brunette complexion that prevails among the people of Hanover, but Holstein and Westphalia, of more of the Teutonic descents of the winds. West Slavs living in their near Germanic settlement. Heirs is to believe that Germanic peoples originally applied the Ethnium, Ethnium to the ancient Veneti, and after the migration period, but then transferred to their easterly neighbors, to the Slavs. Following the 8th century of the Franklin kings and their successor organized nearly all the Wenetian land into marches, but this process later turned into the series of crusades by the 17th century. Excuse me, by the crusades by the 12th century, all Wenish lands had become part of the Holy Roman Empire. I talked about this 4 years ago. I talked about this years ago, decades ago, when I probably 11 years ago, probably 2013. I talked about the Holy Roman Empire and all that with the Moorish Germany, probably in that video, that long video. Oh, it's a 9-minute video. Y'all can watch that. It's old, classic, popular. And in this course of the Osterdelung, which had reached in the peak of the 12th to 14th centuries, but the land was settled by Germans, reorganized due to the process of the assimilation and following of German settlement. Many Slavs west of the Oder adopt the German culture, but the language, which Germans, the indigenous blacks, or the invading whites at the time. So it's a little culture right here. So gold coin planting, like about 590 CE, which says 80 right here, found near St. Martin's Church, Canterbury, and the English Saxon coin mined in England between the 10th century to 11th century. A stunning settlement of these, also called German eastward, of eastward expansions, was the medieval eastward migration and the settlement of Germans from modern day Western and Central Germany into less populated regions of the countries in Eastern Central Europe. Eastern Europe and then the effect area roughly stretched from the Slovenia to Estonia, but then afterwards in Transylvania, in part of the Ashidalong, following the territorial expansions of the Holy Roman Empire. But the Teutonic Order, right away, we see the problem with the white history and its terminology, as we shall see that the Holy Roman Empire was a black empire at once upon a time. That's what they would say. And it's a little different. And then, yes, the invasion of certain groups of whites, they would say, or he calls albinos. Shouts to the brother who's explaining that the Holy Roman Empire is a collective of different groups before the white man had the Roman history, conquest in the name, and kept the same name, by the way. You know how it goes. And Shillong, Shidalong is really about the resurgence of black forcing whites Visigoths back east into the Eastern Europe, talking about the Asian Minor and all that stuff. Yeah, the Visigoths and all that. That's how you got your Goths. And consider of the evidence of the people that brunette complexions were among the Anglo-Saxon settlers in England, but leads on to that people of a still darker hue and the dark black or brown black settlers. Probably there most have been some of these among the Anglo-Saxons, for we meet with the personal names like Blackman, Blakeman, Blakenin, or Blackaman, or Blacksoon, or Bisikia, or Blackaman in various documents of the period. But the Old English term of the darker complexion Britons, brown men or black men, Wheelas, which is what the new Anglo-Saxon people called the native Celtic inhabitants of England. But there's another old word used by the Anglo-Saxon, the note the black or brown, black, the word swart, the word swart. But the personal names Stuart, I mean, Seward. But the personal name Seward or Seward may have been derived from this word and may have originally denote the people of the dark brown or black complexion, to so-called black men of the Anglo-Saxon period, probably induced of some of the darker Winnish people among them in immigrations of the descendants of the people of the same race as the ancestors of the Sarbs and Wends or Larusia and Legion on the territory of Germany and Poland. But the border Saxony and Prussia at the present day Germany, some of the darker winds we may have among the Black Vikings, referring to the Irish annals. And that's a panel quote in annals and all that. And, that gets into the arguments like, the Britain before the English. The pupils been taught the nation earliest inhabitants were Africans who were in Britain before the English. And as you can see, the migration period talks about that in the Wikipedia. You can look this up on the Wikipedia. Backs up the migration period. This guy does his research on the other analysts and all that. Invasions of Rome, 100 to 500 CE, which they call AD and all this other stuff. But it's pretty much simple. And then the British have changed a little since Ice Age, gene study says. And despite the invasions by the Saxons, Romans, Vikings, and Normans, and others, the genetic makeup of today white Britons is much the same as it was 12,000 years ago. 12,000 years ago, they should say. They said ago, and a new book claims. But in the tribes of Britain, archaeologists, they even like, okay, Miles research, okay. Just a reminder example of the nonsense albinos used to tell each other, but and Negroes under their control, blacks knew better. Yeah. And this studies, he's just backing up arguments. Now you get to see the painting of 1080 CE, St. Nicholas, and all this other stuff. Just a little art. You got your Juxon coat of arms, and it's just a little bit of the things that you see. And then you got the Britain Museum. So you got a little bit of stuff here, a little bit of that. And then that's just how you and then that's just how you look at whatever it takes. But the British Museum, we talked about this, a lot of stuff, and then he added some things to it because years ago it was a little different. He showed you the map and stuff, and then I think I showed y'all this before. So these men slaves or nobility, it's to me they're nobility. Who answer for him? This is obviously a dumbass lion, Elba. He called him a racist. Okay. And then that's what it is. The Black Vikings and all that. We talking about the saga. It's no need. But it's I'm just gonna skim through the bridge. You've seen this before on this channel. Shouts out to this dude right here, realhistoryw.com. And he talks about the European churches are the only venues where image of blacks have the most part and not been tampered with. And it never was tampered with. There's a reason for it. It's nobility. You see it like in everywhere else. So yeah, it's a little bit of stuff, a little bit of reading. We're gonna skip to the Irishman because I've talked about this before. And then yeah, the controversial boycott of the Marvel character and all this DNA stuff. It's a little bit of everything, Europe and the Moors and all that stuff, right? And then y'all seen this stuff online a lot that's been touched about obviously these nights were of Saint Maurice and all that. So you see a lot of stuff, and even the icon I have on the channel, I just did it the historical stuff, world history. That's what I talk about. And this Christ, to me, that's idolatry. I don't subscribe to that, but most people do, and I understand that's their little preference. I'm not dissing nobody, but y'all gotta come off of that. But that's just a story. But blacks have their stories and their idols and stuff. You get into the stuff and then just so basically Black Britain, this is it. Let's just say what's what. But that's how it is, in certain aspects. But you get to know this is Black Britain, this is what we have, and I'm gonna stop sharing and that's pretty much it. That's pretty much it. That's pretty much it. That's pretty much it. But it gets to show you that Black Britain is one of the few that what's what, and then and and it just goes to show you that I understand that's the one reasons why Black Britain is talked about like the least. Like, I mean, yeah, we talk about Germany, Moors, they have all these stuff out there, right? They got the evidence. And you're in Britain does too. Those are the only two that he does on here. But shouts out to him. He's the only guy on this website that I use the most. There's other research you can find, other websites, cool, but it don't stay that long. But this guy's consistent. He does the research, he got his sources. This is basically talk about a mix of world history and the other stuff you can get from. Now the African stuff is no need to talk about because the Egyptians. I know y'all tired of that, but I ain't gonna explain that. I can do that whole live streams on that. You can find that on Dark History. There's no need to talk about that. Egyptians is basically what's what. We'll use a topic, and then I'm not gonna scroll down. But if I do it on other platforms, hell yeah, I talk about it for hours. It's nothing. It's no need to talk about YouTube. You can find it anywhere. Everybody's talking about it. It's no need. And then when we talk about it, we just keep it structured. The Sumerians, I can go all day. The indigenous people, there's no need. Like everybody's got their viewpoint on that. I don't subscribe to it because there's evidence of this guy saying they were the Aboriginal people, the Australoid. They would call that term or Australian like people, like Aborigines and all. It's different ones, different people that stock. But you know how that goes. Different groups, different um nationalities, and they use the word races. Races don't mean nothing. That's just you're competing with a group. That's what racist mean. But I understand he used it as a subjective term describing it. We just say nations. Back then, most people in ancient times said nations, other groups of people. That's how they describe people. You know what I mean? So with that, until next time, shalom to the people of Israel. Get to the knowledge. As always, learn about a little history, a little scripture there and there. Shalom to y'all as well, and Gentiles as well as also. Until next time, sign off and I'm out.